we've been listening to the interrogation of Anthony Kirkland. Now, again, he's on trial right now. He's having a new sentencing hearing to decide if he should have life or death. He was convicted, and you heard during that interrogation the detectives doing an amazing job of getting him to say where little Esme was recovered. One of his victims, you can see her there on the screen. She was 13 years old at the time. She had gone jogging and she encountered Anthony Kirkland, and unfortunately, she was raped and killed by Anthony Kirkland. I want to bring on Saman Naserri, criminal defense attorney in San Diego. Saman, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
Excellent. So listen, I've been listening to this interrogation, and two of our producers asked just before I came on the air about interrogation techniques, and I want to point out how excellent of a job these investigators did here, right? Because they had the breaking the ice phase, right? They're just asking basic questions. Then they had the sympathy phase, like, hey, you have kids, I have kids, you wouldn't want this to happen to your kids. And I think what's important here for a lot of people, a lot of times when you have that, we know you did it, tell us what happened, or those leading statements, you can later come back and say, oh, well, this confession was coerced. What say you?
Well, they didn't use that coercion technique the first time. It was appealed because of what the prosecutors had said, what the prosecutors has done. As far as I could see, even as a defense attorney, there weren't a lot of holes to really poke in how the interrogation was done. It seemed like a very good interrogation. The officers did a very good job. They obviously are well experienced, and they were able to get a good confession out of him by building a good rapport with him, which is how an interrogation is supposed to go. It's not supposed to be threatening. It's not supposed to be demanding. That's the coercion side. These officers knew what they were doing, and he usually with serial killers, we've seen this in the past with famous serial killers. They want to be known about. They want to be heard. There's something there that's in their mind that be famous for.
Absolutely.
So he's talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Saman, we're actually going to go to a quick break, have more of this interrogation of Anthony Kirkland. Again, the detectives are doing an amazing job. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss what's next. Hey, welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. We've been covering Anthony Kirkland in Ohio, a death penalty sentencing case. Now, this guy was convicted back in 2010 for multiple murders. He started killing when he was 18 years old. He served time in prison for that. He got out and he started killing again. There you can see him on the screen, Anthony Kirkland. We've been listening to his interrogation with investigators where he was beginning to lead investigators to the body of little Esme, who was 13 years old at the time. Still with me, Saman Naserri, criminal defense attorney in San Diego. Saman, I want to ask you a question here because this is kind of a very interesting case, and I really don't understand the actual legal reason why he was given a new sentencing hearing. I know there were some things that the prosecution said during the previous sentencing hearing that the Supreme Court said, yes, that was presidential towards him, but explain that to me. Why is this guy getting a new trial here?
So if the prosecution used any tactics that were prejudicial and not towards the facts of the case, so if they didn't properly use the facts of the case or they used evidence that wasn't available to try to sway the jury, then it could be an improper sentence. And the Ohio Supreme Court determined that when essentially when the prosecutors said, hey, if you don't give him a sentence on this, it's going to be a freebie, and went on to say what he's already serving and what he's already done, I don't believe any of that had already come in as evidence. And so to use his prior punishments and prior sentences to help them make a decision as to what to sentence him to this time, that wasn't supposed to be taken into consideration. Every case needs to be heard on its own merits, and he tried to sway them by using his prior punishments to make a decision.
Got it. It looks like they're back open in court. Let's hear more of this interrogation of Anthony Kirkland. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. We've been covering Anthony Kirkland in Ohio. A death penalty sentence and hearing. He was previously convicted. Still with me, Saman Naserri. Also joining us, Mark Eiglarsh, trial attorney out of Miami. Mark, I want to toss to you. So this guy was previously convicted. So of course, the jury's not hearing all of the evidence from the previous trial. This is not like a full trial. So how do you convince the jury that Anthony Kirkland should receive the death penalty or receive life in prison?
Well, you go back to a tried and true formula. You take what was already done and you put it in front of another group of folks and you figure you're going to get it.
Got it. Yeah, but in listening to this interrogation that Anthony Kirkland did with investigators there, if I was a juror, him leading me to the investigators to that young woman's body, I think that would definitely help make their decision a lot easier as far as which way they want to go. We want to get back into the courtroom and hear more of this testimony from Anthony Kirkland. Take a listen. Wow, some pretty unbelievable stuff going on right there. And still with me, Saman Naserri and Mark Eiglarsh, both attorneys. Saman, I want to toss to you first. Now, during that interrogation, it looks like, and me having done these interrogations so many times, you get to the point where you're on thin ice as an investigator. You can see that Anthony said, hey, I'll just take you there. And a lot of viewers would probably say, hey, well, he said he's going to take you there. But as an investigator, you still want that confession. And as a defense attorney, you would assume, as a defense attorney, you want that confession as well, because you could later come back and say, well, he knew where the body was, but he didn't kill her. What say you?
I totally agree with that. If they were trying to pry, they were prying because they want the facts. They need to know the confession of how not just where the body is, but how the body got there. But
right.
If he would just stops and says, I'll just take you there, let me just take you to where the body is, the defense is, well, he knows where the body is, but that doesn't mean he knows how it got there or what happened to the body. He just knows where it is.
Exactly. Mark, how about you, sir?
The argument invariably will be, and the veteran detective hopefully knows that if there's a confession, it must have been because the officers provided him with detail prior to getting into that room or at some point. That's not really what happened, but that's going to be the argument. So having as much detail revealed by the defendant prior to where the body is then located, and then there's additional facts known to the defendant, is what they need to get from him.
Absolutely. So, again, we've been listening to the interrogation of Anthony Kirkland. He is on trial right now, a second sentencing hearing in the state of Ohio. This is a death penalty case. The jury will decide should he get another death penalty sentence. We're going to take a quick break. We have more of this Anthony Kirkland case in Ohio here on the Law&Crime Network. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. We're still waiting for court to resume in the Anthony Kirkland trial, the sentencing hearing. They're on a quick break. While we do that, I still have Saman Naserri and Mark Eiglarsh here. Right before the break, the testimony, the interrogation was actually heating up. We heard some things from Anthony Kirkland. He says he punched her, he stomped her, he thinks he knocked her out. And something that was really strange, again, we're talking about a 13-year-old little girl, Esme Kinney. He said that when he was doing that, he saw his girlfriend's face and he became enraged. Mark, what do you take of this? Do you think this is just something he's trying to just come up with to, like, do some type of insanity, or what do you take of this? Because, again, she was 13. It definitely wasn't his girlfriend.
It's disturbing. Who knows? My mindset is so different than his. The only thing I get from it as a defense lawyer is to argue to the jury, and it may fall on deaf ears, that there's a difference between someone who doesn't give it up and someone who does. Clearly, my client cooperated, I would argue. He gave it up. He helped the police to solve this crime, and he should get some benefit for it. One thing you can do is life.
Got it. It looks like they are back in the courtroom, so let's get back into the courtroom live right now. All right, still listening to testimony from Anthony Kirkland, or his interrogation. Now, here's the kicker. Investigators keep asking, where is little Esme? But what Anthony doesn't know is they've already found her body. She was burned. That's how they linked her to Anthony, because that was his previous M.O. Saman, I want to toss to you, your defense attorney, your client's in there. He is almost telling half of the story. He's kind of holding evidence that the police already know. How do you bounce back from that as a defense attorney when they've already got the body and they know it was this guy?
I think it's all about mitigation at this point. This is where doing psych evaluations are going to. This is where seeing where the client's frame of mind is, not just during this interview. When it becomes
yeah, I'm sorry, Saman. It sounds like we're having a little bit of audio difficulties there, but that's okay. We have to actually toss to a quick break here in a few minutes. Again, we've been listening to the interrogation of Anthony Kirkland. He is having a second death penalty sentencing hearing in the state of Ohio. He was convicted back in 2010 of murder, multiple murders, but the Supreme Court said he could actually have a new hearing based on something the prosecution said previously. We're going to take a quick break and get right back to this dramatic interrogation. Stay tuned to the Law and Crime Network. Hey, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. Just before the break, I was asking Saman, now, the investigators have already determined, they've already found little Esme's body, but they're going along with Anthony Kirkland to try to get him to confess. Now, as a defense attorney, Saman, how do you bounce back from that? Because investigators have the body. They know, based on his previous pattern, he is the one that likely did this. They're trying to get this confession. So how do you bounce back from that from a defense standpoint?
So it's not so much as it is about bouncing back as it is more about doing mitigation for your client. Obviously, when you listen to this entire interrogation, there is something not right here. So you do the psych evaluations, you get him checked out, you have doctors check him out, you have them read the reports, because what's his state of mind on a regular basis? You know, they do a full evaluation of him to see why is he doing this? Why is he kind of confessing but not really confessing? And that goes back to what's his mind state in general, and the way he interacts with other people. And that's where the evaluations come in. They actually do a lot of help mitigating these types of cases.
Got it, and that's a very interesting take, of course. Let's get back into that courtroom and hear more. Still listening to this interrogation of Anthony McFarland, and we hear the investigator now turning up the heat on Anthony Kirkland. We hear the investigator turning up the heat there about Esme being dead and how he actually left her. Still with me is Mark Eiglarsh. Mark, I want to toss to you really quick because I know you have to sign off here pretty soon. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of this interrogation because things are starting to come out. You know, the investigators already had little Esme there. They had already recovered her body, but they still want that confession. Why is that so crucial to get that confession?
Because they know they've already got him admitting stuff. You know then the defense lawyers are going to say that this was coerced, maybe he got the facts somewhere else.
Right.
They need to get it out from him. If they know that the child was burned, the last thing they want to do is suggest that without first hearing it from him. But my goodness, how frustrating is this? You just want him to come out with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm listening to this myself, and as an old investigator, ex-cop myself, I'm just like, godly, dude, just go ahead and spill the beans, right, already, because we already know. But like you said, Mark, when this goes to trial, you don't want the defense attorney to come back and question anything. Without that confession, it's really hard to get a conviction in any case. Mark, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on your Friday down in Miami. I'm sure there's a lot of things you could be doing there in that beautiful weather, but we appreciate your time here on the Law and Crime Network, as always. We're actually going to toss to a quick break here. We'll have more on this case, Anthony McFarland, and we're watching the courtroom down in Florida with Demetrius Elder. It looks like that court is starting to move, so I'm sure we will toss to that here pretty soon. But again, we've been listening to Anthony Kirkland, his interrogation with investigators in the state of Ohio. Stay tuned right here to the Law and Crime Network. We will have more of the top trials of the nation. Stay tuned and don't go away. Okay, if you're just joining us, that was deposition of Lisa Kinney. She's the mother of Esme Kinney, who was killed, brutally killed, raped and killed by Anthony Kirkland, who's on trial right now, his second sentencing for the death penalty. You can see her there on your screen. Still with me, Saman Naserri. Saman, here we have the mother of the victim, and we've been listening to the interrogation earlier from Anthony Kirkland about what he did to her little girl, her daughter. So with the jury, listening to that interrogation and then listening to this mother and how she was actually looking for her daughter and she knew something was amiss, that something wasn't right, how much do you think that will weigh on the jury's decision in this verdict, whether he should receive life in prison or the death penalty?
It's huge. You know, you have one side during this interrogation and he's beating around the bush, telling a different story from what happened.
Right.
On the other side, you have a mother looking for her child, and who the child was brutally murdered. So it's going to play to the emotions of the jury that why should this man not receive the death penalty? It's a matter of, it's not whether or not he should. They're trying to be convinced of why shouldn't he? And because there's no juror that's sitting there that isn't thinking, well, he deserves the death penalty, that he doesn't deserve the death penalty. I think it's a matter of convincing them that he doesn't.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the bigger question is why shouldn't he? And listen, I'm sure many of those jurors there, it's usually a jury of 12, right? I'm sure at least 5 or 6 or maybe even more have children themselves. Me being a father of, I don't want to date myself, a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, but, you know, I remember when they were much younger. And even at this age, if something happened like that, it would be hard to convince me of a reason why this person should not receive the death penalty in this case. We've, again, been listening to Lisa Kinney, the mother of Esme Kinney, her deposition. We're going to toss to a quick break and be right back with more of this in Ohio on the Law and Crime Network. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. That was critical testimony from Detective Jennifer Mitch, the Cincinnati Police Department. And one of the things I picked up on is that Anthony Kirkland actually lied about his identification. He gave a fake last name, fake social, fake date of birth. Still with me, Saman Naserri. Saman, I've dealt with this hundreds of times. People lie to police all the time. They found these weapons on him close to the area where Esme was found. How big is that? Because, I mean, this guy, had he been innocent, would have just said, hey, my name is Anthony Kirkland, DOB is whatever, my social is whatever. But he lied initially to police. How big is that? You can see Anthony Kirkland there on the screen.
It's huge because it's obvious that he's trying to hide something. So if he's lying about his identity, then it leads to the next question is, what else could he possibly be lying about? And that's where they start going. It's like, this guy's going to lie to us about his name and date of birth. He's got something to hide. So why is he lying? What is he hiding from us?
Yeah, why is he lying? What does he have to hide? Why did he have all those weapons on him? Why was he in the area of where little Esme was found? There's a lot of questions there. We know the answers to that. Again, that is Anthony McFarland. He is having his second death penalty sentencing case. The Supreme Court said he could have a new hearing. We're also closely monitoring the Florida courtroom with Demetrius Elder. It looks like there's movement there. I believe the judge is actually giving instructions. You can see that courtroom there live on your screen. We are going to take a quick break here at the Law and Crime Network. Hopefully when we get back, we can have some closing arguments in that Demetrius Elder case. Again, that is a manslaughter case in the state of Florida that began as a road rage incident, but the defendant in this case is claiming self-defense. He initially tried stand your ground, but the judge threw that out. So we're curious to see what will go on in that courtroom in the state of Florida. Demetrius Elder, stay right here on the Law and Crime Network. Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. We are closely monitoring the Florida courtroom with the Demetrius Elder manslaughter case. Again, this started as a road rage incident. Demetrius Elder, the defendant, claims self-defense. Still with me, and I know you have to sign off here in just a second. Saman Naserri. Saman, let me ask this. So we've heard a lot of testimony in this case. He says it's self-defense. The state says manslaughter. We heard testimony from the girlfriend that said the victim, Mohammed Knight, approached the defendant in this case with his hand extended as if he was going to shake his hand. So with that said, a heated argument about road rage, do you think that maybe, just maybe, Demetrius Elder did believe there was an imminent threat there, and this could possibly be self-defense.
That's the defense, because all you have to do is put that little bit of reasonable doubt in a jury's mind that he truly believed that he was in fear of his life or that he needed to defend himself. And there it is. You have a little bit of a self-defense argument there. So that is the best argument to be made here, and it is plausible that he did believe that.
Absolutely. Saman, I want to thank you for joining us on this Friday. There in San Diego, go enjoy the weather. I know you're a few hours behind us, so you got a lot left of your day. So we appreciate you joining us here on the Law and Crime Network. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, while we're waiting on this courtroom, we're going to toss to the opening statement by the defense in the Demetrius Elder case and take a listen to what they say happened that night.